the commissioner of the National Football League, Roger Goodell. How are you, Commissioner?
I'm great, Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. What does draft day mean to you?
Hope, dreams. Every team gets better. Every young man that has ever dreamed of playing in the NFL that has the talent that's here, that they're hoping they can be drafted in the NFL and start their careers. And I think that's a great opportunity for me to share in that experience with them when their names are called and they come across that stage.
And here we are in Chicago for a second straight year with both a stage indoors and outdoors as well. It worked great last year, and a lot of people are saying here, however, that this might be the last year for Chicago having the draft right now, that a venue, a different venue will be selected next year. What are the plans for the NFL as it currently stand for the draft?
Well, we haven't made any determinations, Rich. Chicago's been a great host. They actually redefined the draft. They've set a new mark here, but they've also created so much interest that other cities have also found that they have an interest in hosting this. So what we're going to do is evaluate all that when we get done. There's obviously a lot of potential cities that are interested in this, and we may continue to rotate, which means that we could be back in Chicago either next year or shortly thereafter. So there are a lot of changes that we're still evaluating and trying to see what we can do best to share this experience with our fans on a national basis.
So will there always be an outdoor component now for the draft forevermore? Do you think that's something you're going to keep?
It'll probably depend on climate. It'll probably depend on the markets. It may depend on, obviously, the facilities that we have. The key thing for us is not outdoors as much as it is getting as many fans the opportunity to experience it. And that, I think, is what was so remarkable about last year. We didn't know whether to expect 10,000 or 20,000. We ended up with 250,000 fans that all had a wonderful time enjoying the draft and getting closer to the game again in the off season, which is great for all of us.
Commissioner Roger Goodell joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's get to some news of the day. The obviously hot story this week involving the U.S. District Court, 2nd District in Manhattan, reinstating the suspension for Tom Brady. And there's been a lot of reaction to that, certainly from some of Brady's colleagues. Drew Brees was on the show on Tuesday, Commissioner, and I'd love to just play one quick soundbite of what he said for you and just get your reaction, if that's fine.
There's changes that need to be made. I hate to see this type of mistrust between league, commissioner, and players and fans. There shouldn't be that disconnect. There should be a much more open, transparent process. Even if Roger Goodell, who's done many great things for the league, I would just say this thing in particular is really a black eye for the league, and there's something that should be done about it.
That's what he said, Commissioner. The level of distrust is what he talked about. Do you have a plan or something in mind to bridge that level of distrust that Drew Brees says there is?
Well, Rich, a couple of points that need to be made. First, the players agreed to the system, as they have for many decades. Two is this process went through many different phases, including district court, as you pointed out, and also a court of appeals, Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So the amount of time, energy, independent viewpoints, in addition to the underlying facts, were established with an independent investigation. So what the appeals court ruled earlier this week was that not only was this within the authority and consistent with the collective bargaining agreement, but also that the underlying facts were clear, that the process was fair, and that we reached the right conclusion. And it is up for the commissioner, whose responsibility is to protect the integrity of the game, to make sure that there are appropriate discipline when violations occur. As you know, more than anything, players, coaches, teams, fans, our partners all want to make sure that the game is played within the same set of rules, and that everyone is playing within that same structure. And that is what the commissioner's responsibility has always been, always will be. And it's important to do that. I know that there are times when people don't like a certain outcome, and that's part of the process. That's why there has to be someone who makes those judgments. The appeals court made the point that that is the commissioner's authority, that is his responsibility, and he fulfilled that responsibly, openly, and fairly, and that is why we came to the conclusion.
That said, there's just an all-time great that's sitting there with a 4-game suspension right here for something that did happen, as as everyone knows, over a year ago now.
Yeah, but Rich, you don't make rules on the basis of whether it's an all-time great, who I have tremendous respect for, and is an all-time great and will be a Hall of Famer, or a player who's 53rd man on the roster. Those rules apply to everyone equally. That's what players want, that's what coaches want, that's what teams want, and that's what we have to have fair competition in the NFL. So it doesn't matter which individual it is, the rules apply to everybody. And that is what we have to continue to enforce.
Would you be open to some form of an arrangement to knock down the number of games in exchange for, say, a pledge not to appeal further this process?
Rich, they're going to have to make their own decision on whether they appeal. We've gone through this for a very long period of time. We appealed the initial decision, correctly so, because the appeals court said that the district judge got it wrong. If they feel like they need to appeal it, they have to do that. That's not something that I can make the determination on. The appellate decision was very clear, very strong, and so we're moving forward. We have since last year. We made the appeal. It was up to the Court of Appeals, to make the decision, and they did.
Commissioner Roger Goodell joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. The expansion of playoffs and also the regular season, there hasn't been much discussion on that publicly of late. Is there still a desire to add more playoff teams to the mix, Commissioner?
Well, we've continued to study it. Our competition committee looked at it again this year. We continue to look at all the available data. As you know, we want to make sure we have a system that puts as much emphasis on the regular season games and the importance of each of those games, with also the number of teams that qualify for the playoffs. And those are obviously very much interrelated. We've got a very good system right now. We have a system where every game means something in the regular season, and to make it to the dance, make it to the playoffs is a huge accomplishment. And so what we want to do is try to make sure that whatever changes we make, we keep that balance. When it works so well, it makes you even more reserved, at least in where you want to take this, and you want to make sure you think through it properly so that we can continue to have the kind of competition and the kind of excitement about who's going to qualify for the playoffs, and make sure that it's a special accomplishment when you do that.
Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, is in Las Vegas today, reportedly, to try and kick the tires on the possibility of moving the team there. There's a supposition, though, Commissioner, that a very warm place would have to freeze over for the NFL to ever allow a team to move to that city. Is that even a possibility, that the league would entertain the idea, just put it in front of ownership?
Well, first off, it's not the league's decision whether that goes in front of ownership. If a club has a proposal that they want on a relocation, as you know, they put that forward, and that is considered by the entire membership and would be subject to a vote of 24 of the 32 owners. So that would be the process, as it would be with any relocation. Obviously, there will be factors that will go into that, whether it's the market itself and the size of the market, and obviously the potential for success there, the quality of the stadium, and of course in this case there will be some owners that will look at particularly importance to the gambling that occurs in Las Vegas. So that will obviously be a factor for some owners, but it is subject to the vote of the 32. When we went through this process in Houston a few months ago to make a determination on the Rams returning to L.A., there was very much support, a great deal of support for both the Chargers and the Raiders, that they had done what they could to try to get stadiums built, but they both wanted to go back and try to do that. And I think all of us want to try to get those stadiums built in San Diego, where I was last weekend, and in Oakland.
Commissioner Roger Goodell here on the Rich Eisen Show. In the few minutes I have left with you, the catch rule, it seems like it's the same, because it is. I mean, I just, as a re-emphasis on making sure that the populace is educated better on what is in the rule book. And to me, I would love to see this rule changed with 2 hands or 1 hand, as you know, on the ball and 2 feet on the ground. That is now officially a catch, and if the ball comes loose, then it's on the player to go and recover it because that's now a loose ball. Is there any chance we can get something like that, Commissioner?
Well, Rich, we've had the competition committee, we've had the full membership, we had a special committee of players that participated in, most inactive and retired players, but some active players. We've had some coaches in, we've had game officials all looking at this to see if there's a better solution. And there still comes the point of judgment of how long the individual player possesses that ball. And listening to many because I sat in the meetings and I listened to a lot of Hall of Fame receivers talk about the responsibility of the receivers are to control the football and hold the football and to hand it to the official. And so they all came back after a lot of discussion to saying this is the right rule. We need to communicate it properly. We need to get it out there. And we need to do a better job in that area. So the membership, that was obviously a recommendation of the membership. They agreed to it. There are a lot of suggestions about how to make it more clear, but I think there aren't many suggestions that I haven't heard that have not been fully considered.
And John Mara said that it's possible that the kickoff will eventually go away and be banned over player safety concerns. Would you agree with that assessment, Commissioner?
Well, Rich, I think the most important thing for us is to continue to make the rule changes to the game that can make the game safer, take techniques out. We have seen, because of the analysis of the data, that there is a higher frequency of concussions on the kickoff. That's why we made the change to the kickoff rule several years ago. And we want to continue to look at it. We made another rule this year to address that. I think that's what we want to continue to do, is just make the game safer. I think it's premature at this point in time to make any judgments about whether it will or will not be part of the game. What we're going to try to do in the meantime is make it a safer play so we can retain it.
Well, we have an idea. I have an idea if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I always love to hear your ideas.
Okay, because I'm always. And by the way, on that, I mentioned to Dean Blandino. How was I not on the catch committee? I mean, I don't know how I got left off that list.
That must have been an oversight. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. I must have slipped through the cracks. But we have an idea that perhaps like the number of a kickoff could be like a number of challenges you have, and by that I mean this: that you have once a game the ability to say, I want to kick off, or I want to be kicked off too. That you remove it. Otherwise, you could just start the possession on the, say, 25 or 30-yard line, whatever you choose. Make that the regular. But there's either 1 or 2 moments in the game where you can demand, I want to kick off or be kicked off too. So if you're down, for instance, and you've got a great kick returner, if you got somebody back there that can go to the house, you can demand to be kicked off too. Or if you're down and need an onside kick, you could say, I'm kicking off to you. And that is the way you can move forward in the NFL.
It's actually a very interesting idea. Actually a version or something similar to that was discussed from time to time. We'll put that one in the hot. To me, good ideas come from a lot of places, even the Rich Eisen show. So that's a good one, Rich. And that's actually worth talking further about.
My producer, Chris Law, who came up with that idea, is beaming right now, Commissioner.
I'm levitating.
Well, Chris, good job, Chris.
And the other
I'm glad he gave you credit for it, too, by the way.
Oh, no, come on. You know that. There may be an I in Rich and Eisen, but I'm a team player, Commissioner. And before I do let you go, my other Chris that is here, earlier this week, we're here at a radio station, the iHeartRadio community here in Chicago, and he went down the hall and he took somebody's milk out of the refrigerator and used it for his own use, even though it wasn't his. And I'm just wondering, what is the league policy in Park Avenue for community food in some sort of refrigerator? Is there some sort of policy that I should institute right here, Commissioner?
We're really asking him
Yeah, we are asking the Commissioner of the NFL this question.
Okay.
Well,
yes.
that was above my pay grade. I do not have a policy on that.
Okay.
You've been in my refrigerator in my office. You're welcome to it anytime you want.
So it's not labeled? You don't have your stuff labeled in your refrigerator? There's no RG on? Oh,
I certainly don't. Nope. It's
okay.
You're welcome anytime to come on. It's not much more than water, but that's okay. You're welcome.
Terrific.
To come in.
Okay, very good, Commissioner. I just, figured that I could look. I'd always look, because I'm an extension of the Shield here, and I want to make sure that this show and the people who are part of this show are doing the right thing.
Well, I'm glad you're focusing on important policy matters, Richard. I can see that.
Commissioner, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in the theater
we'll
tonight.
See you tonight. Thank you.
You bet. No, thank you. You bet. That's Commissioner Roger Goodell.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.